And this is the kind of thing which I would have thought, I can't do it. But the way you said it, it just sort of like lit a fire. I said, yes, I can do this. And so.
Your next favorite podcast pick starts now. Here's the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to the Professor and Heather Ann.
Although we don't have all the answers, we hope we can encourage and excite you. We're here sharing our lives to inspire you to make the most of the second half of your life.
So we met 3 years ago on a dating app, and as everyone knows, dating is nowadays in particular is very difficult, very challenging, and I think especially for the middle-aged and older. So we're going to start by talking about how we went into the online dating scene. And so what were some of the, as you were thinking about posting your profile and the sort of man you were looking for, what were some deal breakers, like things that were like absolutely essential or absolutely unacceptable?
He had to be a good kisser. He had to be established in his career. Couldn't be living and sleeping on mom's couch.
Are there any middle-aged men who are still sleeping on their mother's couch?
I believe there's quite a few. You'd be surprised. I also had faith. He had to believe in God and be willing to go to services and celebrate the holidays. What about you?
Well, for me, it was essential that a woman have no children living at home, or it might have been acceptable, like to have a child who's 17, is about to fledge from the nest. But I was not going to be the stepdad.
You didn't want to start a second family?
I certainly didn't. I know men who have done that. One of my mentors from when I was in grad school, a professor, he at the age of about 60, he got married for the second time and had a couple more children. And I look at that and I think, as it says in the book of Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season. And for me, the season of doing things like changing diapers and chasing a toddler around the house, that's long over with. So that was one. Another one was political, and it really shouldn't be this way. It should be possible to have relationships across political boundaries, and in normal times it is, but we don't live in normal times. And so it was important that a woman not be leftist. And third, it was important that a woman be cheerful, upbeat. So looking at the profiles on the dating apps, I found it remarkable how many. So I set for my age range of who I was looking for, I put 50 to 64. And a lot of the women, just in their photographs, they looked depressed or even angry. And so, that's like immediate red flag.
Yes, but I wasn't smiling in my
photos. You weren't smiling. You weren't smiling, but you did not look depressed or angry.
Well, that's good to know.
So there are a number of major differences between what's important in looking for a partner in middle age from when you're 20 or 30. And so a couple things that come to mind. Well, one of them is what I just mentioned about the difference between wanting someone who will be a good parent when you're 20 compared to wanting someone who doesn't have any troublesome kids hanging around when you're 60. And another one is the importance of health. Okay, so when you're 20, you can pretty much assume that anyone that age is healthy. But when you get to be 60, you start to think about how many years before I'd have to be a nursemaid to this person. So what were some things that changed for you? And
yours are very serious.
It's a serious business.
Dating in your 50s and 60s is a very serious business. I obviously differences are is when you're younger, you're looking to, is he going to be a good dad? Is he going to be a good provider? But obviously I wasn't looking for that this go around. At this age, I'm able to support myself. Not having any more children. My boys are grown, so there was not going to be any more children. So I truly believe that you're looking for something different. You're looking for somebody that's more compatible, somebody that's going to have a sense of humor, somebody that you're just going to be more friends, I think. Not in the friend zone. That's not where I'm going. But you really have to like each other in your 50s. And I feel like when you're younger, you're constantly, you're changing. You're growing, you're evolving. Hopefully you're doing that in your marriage. But you're already established when you're in your 50s and 60s and even older. You're already established. You're already who the person you're going to be for the most part. So it has to be somebody that you genuinely like.
And who can, because the older we get, the more like ourselves we get, the more of our idiosyncratic quirks kind of become more and more pronounced. And so it has to be someone who's comfortable with all those quirks.
Yes, like my ADHD and when I get out of control. Need to have somebody that can handle that and not. I feel like when you're younger in relationships, you are criticized more, if that's the way to think of it. And so you're wanting somebody that's just, you're just more mature. You're just wanting somebody that's going to approach my ADHD in a mature way instead of just telling me I'm too much. Because that's something I've heard my whole entire life. But not one single time have you ever told me in these 3 years that I'm too much. You just, when I'm completely out of control, you'll be like, ADHD, ADHD. And you'll let me run around the house and do whatever I have to do to, bring myself back to the moment so that we can accomplish anything that we need to accomplish at that time.
So there's, in some ways, of course, there's still, there's still personal growth ahead, even in middle age and even in old age. But there are some things about a person which they're just, that's the way they are. Like their personality has kind of solidified. And so if a partner can't accommodate to that, then things are not going to work.
Like little quirks. Like you have little quirks that I think are funny.
Like what?
You do this thing when you're talking and when you get really involved. I call it like the trifecta effect because you like touch your nose, then you touch your glasses each side. So it's a little quirky thing. So, and it's not something you're aware of because I've asked you, did you do that when you were in lectures? And you're like, I don't know.
I've not been able to find any videos of my lectures, so I can't answer this question.
So I'm curious of how long you've been doing that.
And there's no way to know.
But it's cute. It's endearing.
So
one of the things we need to jump into is safety. So dating online seems to be the norm. It seems to be that's how a majority of couples are coming together now. And unfortunately, there's so much fake things out there. People get catfished. We have been watching different documentaries about people who have been swindled by somebody, and we're talking like a lot of money. So what are some of the things? So I know as a woman, and I've pretty much done this my whole entire life, even when I was younger and dating and going out with somebody I didn't really know, I always would let somebody know where I'm going. But even now, even though you were in your 60s, you seemed relatively harmless.
Well, and I had an online identity that you could check out before meeting me.
But that doesn't prove who you are in personal life. That just shows who you are in your professional life. People can be very different. And especially with my background of the childhood trauma and stuff, I'm very suspicious of people. So I sent pictures, I let my girlfriends know this is where I'm going, that type of thing. And I think that's common for a woman. And if you are online dating and you're not doing that, you need to be doing that. You need to let people be aware of where you're going, when to expect to hear back from you, a picture of the guy, because it's a crazy world we live in now. And you just have to make sure you're protecting yourself at all times. But from a man standpoint, what did you do?
So this dating website, JDate, so it's a Jewish dating website, and I was on it for more than a year, about a year and 4 months before we met. And early on, I had exchanges of messages with what I came to realize were fake accounts, and from what I've read, what they were leading up to would have been asking for money, but it never got to that point. But after a while, I got so I think I could tell when they were fake.
And what would be a number one
Things that
site?
like too good to be real, sort of too flattering, too kind of gushy.
I got several of those, like the second text. Oh, you're so beautiful. I would love to meet you. I'm already like infatuated with you, and you're just like, you don't even know me. Who are you talking to? So
there's that. There's the I'm not in town right now.
That's the famous one.
So I think JDate, from what I could see, is pretty good about like removing the fake accounts. There were a couple of times when I started exchanging text messages, and then there was, I got a notice saying, "Oh, this person's no longer."
And I think a lot of the top dating sites try to do that, but you still have to protect yourself. You still have to be aware, be cautious. I think one of the other things from the research we've been doing on the online dating stuff is a lot of these, several women made comments that they had never, especially at the beginning, talked to them on the phone. So if it's not flowing, like you're going from the dating site to then you start, okay, well, here's my number, we can start talking, we can start texting, to wanting to meet in person, and in a relatively decent timeline where, it's not 6 months from now, or if you live out of state from each other, there is a little bit difference there. But I think that when we talk about us dating, we met online, and people were constantly asking me, I have a lot of women my age asking me about how we met, that I don't just say, oh, we met online. I want to have conversation about that, and with people that it's a great opportunity, but make sure you're protecting yourself, make sure you're being safe.
Yes. So even on our first date, I told a friend where I was going to be, and I actually in the middle of the date, I went to the bathroom and texted him from the bathroom. Okay, haven't been abducted.
So he knew I wasn't going to kidnap you.
I knew by then
that you were safe.
Yes.
Okay. I was going to put you in my trunk and take you off somewhere. So what are some of the crazy, like, one of the things that was big that I tell people about sometimes is that I still wasn't sure I really wanted to date, and I was on one of the Facebook pages for singles in our area, and I put out there that I just wanted to have a motorcycle ride. I didn't want to go on a date. We could meet. It needed to be safe. He needed to know I wasn't crazy. I needed to know he wasn't crazy, because I'm getting on a motorcycle with this person.
Right.
But I didn't really want to have lunch. My ex and I had a motorcycle. We did a lot of motorcycle rides. I just had been wanting to go on one. And several guys reached out and said, hey, I'll take you on a motorcycle ride. And we talked a little bit because, again, I had to make sure he was safe. I was getting on a motorcycle and just riding off into the sunset. But what I found was several of them, all of them were like, well, let's go for a drink. Let's go to dinner. And I was like, no, I just want a motorcycle ride. I'll pay for the gas. I don't have a problem with that. I think one guy was like, hey, I'll give you $50 to take me on a motorcycle ride. Well, I would feel more comfortable. And I'm just like, no, I didn't want anything serious. So I had to wind up blocking. There was probably about 5 of them. And I had to block them because I just wanted the friendship zone. I didn't want to get serious or do anything because I was just dipping my toes into the water.
But you can understand, right, why a man would expect that a motorcycle ride is a date.
No, you don't.
Okay.
I just think differently, so I don't. And it made me sad because I didn't get to.
You didn't get to have that motorcycle ride.
So I'm gonna have to turn you into a motorcycle ride. So what was one of your crazy dates?
So in, let's see, January 2022. So after about 6 months on this dating website, I sent messages with a woman living. So I was still in Los Angeles, and this woman lived in the Midwest. And so then we had a series of telephone dates and Zoom dates, and seemed to be getting along very well. And I suggested that I could come and visit her. So this was March 2022, and I'd gotten the plane tickets and made all the arrangements. And then just a couple days before I was going to fly there, she said, I've decided it can't work between us. And sorry, I don't want you to visit. I don't want to hear from you again. And for about 24 hours, I was really depressed. And then I realized that this was all for the best. This just it wouldn't have worked at all. Just to take one example, this was the pandemic was already winding down, and people were coming back to normal, but she wasn't. She was saying when we go out to public places, when you visit, we're wearing masks, and so I realized that if I'd actually started a relationship with her, she would have had me masking and vaxxing to the end of my days, and just totally incompatible with the way I saw things. And I think what happened was just getting this kind of attention from a woman was intoxicating and caused me to overlook all the sort of practical aspects of, could I really, be compatible with this person?
I think that needs to be like another episode. We need to jump into that because from a woman's standpoint, it was more cautious, more, I'm going to keep you at bay, even though, hadn't had attention for quite a few years. I felt like I was more closed off. Maybe I'm not sure I really want to do that. And I'm hearing that a lot from women my age. Case in point is last Friday we went and had a couples massage, and it was great, and I'm very thankful that you like to do those things.
I do. I'd never done those things before, and now I really enjoy them.
Learned better ways of life.
The finer things in life.
Finer things in life, that's it. But it was the end, and we were chit-chatting with our massage therapist, and we had just mentioned that we had started a podcast. We had recorded that morning, and we were telling her the different things that are our topics, and one of them being dating at our age, and she's 50 years old, and with a very sad look on her face, she's like, I've given up.
it was. I couldn't. I didn't say anything. Couldn't think of anything to say.
I hope I was encouraging and telling her that, don't ever say never, because you never know what's coming around the corner. But it just kind of solidified basically what we're talking about. And I think we probably need to dive in more at another time about the differences between men and women dating even our age. And I think men might be more open to love and women might be a little bit more closed off.
Oh, yes.
At this age.
Yes. To me, it was remarkable how I was back in this mindset that I hadn't been in since I was in my 20s of being open to being intoxicated in that way by a woman's attention. It was just, it felt like my academic work is in evolutionary psychology, and so that's the way I talk sometimes. Like these sort of these built-in evolved modules in my brain were kind of, after decades of being dormant or like being reactivated. But yes, of course, it's somewhat different for a woman.
Yes, I think we have lost at love, and then the thought of maybe possibly being hurt again, or past traumas, childhood traumas. I think that has a tendency to make women my age just a little bit more standoffish.
More wary.
For sure.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that we keep our relationship thriving?
One of them is whatever shenanigans I come up with. You're willing, let's go do it. The number one thing, all kidding aside, the number one thing is that we're very supportive of each other's dreams. So I am in transition of changing careers and positions and different things like that. And that kind of all came about when we met. And you've been supportive of that. You've been encouraging. You've been my biggest cheerleader, and have never once told me, oh, that's just too crazy, or are you sure you can do that?
So I believe in you.
Yes. And I feel that. I think that that's one of the things. Humor. We laugh a lot. We laugh at each other. We laugh at ourselves.
And we laugh at the same things. I think that like almost anyone would say, oh yes, it's important that our partner have a good sense of humor. But what's a good sense of humor?
It's different for everybody.
Yeah, different people find different things funny, and we find the same things funny.
We find the same things funny, but I also have a very dry sense of humor, and maybe laugh at things or make jokes about things that people don't necessarily get, but it comes from my childhood. Instead of being sad or depressed about my childhood, I actually have to find humor in it and look at the good things that did happen in my childhood that I was fortunate enough to have. And you get that. So that's because I've had some people just kind of look at me like, what is she talking about?
That's not funny.
That's not funny. And it's like, well, it is funny because you either have to cry about it or you have to laugh about it. And so I would rather laugh about it. When you get my sisters and I together, then it's even crazier, the things that we come up with and laugh about our childhood. And you get that. So that is something that's always helped us in our relationship. What about you?
Well, on a sort of moment to moment or day to day scale, we always make sure to express affection for each other. So to say, I love you, I'm very grateful for you. and because it's unfortunately it's too easy for people to feel like, well, of course my partner knows that I love them. I don't have to say it all the time, but it's important to say it. It strengthens your bond, just the saying it and hearing it, rather than taking it for granted.
It's also feeling it. I feel that. One of the things I talk about a lot, talked about on here, I talk about with friends, people, professionals, who know about my childhood and stuff, is that I feel it for the first time. I feel safe and my soul is at peace. So when you say those to me, I truly feel those words, and we openly use those words every day. One thing that I do a little bit different is I tell you more that I'm crazy about you than I love you. What are your feelings on when I do that?
It's well, it's what I've come to expect.
Do you feel?
My heart lifts every time Heather says that.
Partly, I don't know why I started doing that with you, but I just feel that, to me, it's more the feelings behind the words. And I use those words with my boys. I've used, I loved my ex-husband, all of that, but I truly am crazy about you. Like, for the first time in my life, I've heard people talk about it, but it's just like, I can't get enough of you. I like being around you. I like being in our house together. So I really feel like I'm crazy about you, in addition to loving you.
Okay.
Does that
it does make sense, yes. So do you want to say a little bit about your childhood for listeners who didn't hear the previous episode?
I grew up in trauma, and it was pretty bad. By the time I was 5 years old, we were already being locked in our rooms, windows nailed shut so we couldn't escape. That was not openly talked about. Love just wasn't talked about in my household. It was something I had to learn, and I'll be honest, I probably didn't truly understand until I had my oldest son. Mm-hmm. And the first time I held him was probably that this is what love is.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that we got real heavy.
So, what were some of the bumps in the road? Some of the things that didn't work in our relationship and had to be repaired?
Bringing in old baggage, letting go of things from our previous marriages, having to learn those things about ourselves. I think it was probably one of the hardest things, and learning to, especially at our age, being intimate with each other, especially since we both had long-term marriages. I think that was something that we really had to work on, and had to figure all of that out and what worked for us. And talking about stuff. I know both of us did not really talk things out in our previous marriages. So that was, I think, something that we had to make sure that we did from the beginning.
So something that I had trouble with was over-interpreting things that Heather says. And she would be stating facts, and I would interpret it as criticism. So if I would just do some household chore, or cook a meal, and she would say something about it, and I would. So I'm getting much better at this, but early on, I would leap to the conclusion that you didn't like it, so I did that wrong, huh? And
And it wasn't that you did it wrong. I was just wanting to know why you did it that way. And is this going to work in our relationship for, just a simple thing of cleaning and cooking and different things. Again, we were learning to be with each other in a relationship. And you have learned by now, I ask a lot of questions. I'm very inquisitive about everything. Like, why did you do that? Or, because it's not that, especially at the very beginning, I ask a lot of questions because it's my way of getting to know you.
Right.
And understand you and understand, your quirks and how you think. And I did notice that right away, that you took it more as criticism. And that was something that we had to be willing to both openly discuss, because I was not criticizing you. I was just trying to understand you better.
Yes. So it has taken a while. Now I get it, at least most of the time.
So one of the things I've had to learn too is I'm a boy mom. So there's a fine line being a boy mom with, I wanted my boys to be sensitive, but also, they're boys. And from my understanding, raising boys and girls are very different. I came from a family of girls. But one of the things I always did with my boys was encouraging and stuff. So I learned that I needed to be even more so with you. Not fake or anything like that, but encouraging. Because I did get a lot of, and one of the things I did with my boys was I always encouraged them, like when they'd come and say, I can't do that. Well, who says you can't do that? Why don't you try and see if you're going to like it? One day my older son came home and said, I want to play tennis. And he was in the 8th grade, and it was like, you've never played tennis before? You've never had a racket? And he's like, but I think I'm going to do that. Okay. And he was amazing and did great. So I just kind of used that concept with you and tried to encourage you that.
So now we're going to talk about major moments in our relationship when we realized how perfectly fit for each other we were. And so one of them, and it's not going to sound very romantic, but it was, so we'd been dating for just like two and a half months or so. And so I drove from Stillwater to Tulsa to spend the weekend with you. And there was this, one of those Arctic blasts, temperature was about 0 and there was ice on the roads. And while I was at your house, I get this call from my next door neighbor. And she says, there's water gushing out from under your garage door. So I drove back to Stillwater, and what had happened was a pipe had frozen and burst. And so there was quite a lot of water damage in the house, including the living room carpet was soaked. It was ruined. And so I called several of those remediation companies. But of course, this had happened to a lot of people, and so they said, well, we're not going to be there for like 3 or 4 days. And so I was just, sitting there. There's this moldering carpet, and I was talking to you, and I said, I don't know what I can do. And you said, do you have any tools? And I said, well, I have this little toolbox. There's like a hammer and a screwdriver. And you said, take the screwdriver and start taking up that carpet and roll it up as much as possible. And this is the kind of thing which I would have thought, I can't do it. I can't do anything with tools. I'm just not practical. But the way you said it, it just sort of like lit a fire. I said, yes, I can do this. And so I did it. And then when finally 3 or 4 days later, when they came to do the repairs, I said, that That was about as good of self-help, self-care, self-repair that you could have possibly done. And so it was that moment I realized how much you believe in me and are willing and able to help me move on to things, even things which I never thought I could do.
Yeah, we still encourage each other. And what's one of the words that we cannot use in our household anymore?
Ruined.
Because nothing's ruined. You may have to change, you may have to fix something, but nothing is absolutely ruined. So that was a word you used a lot that just I didn't understand.
Yeah. So farewell to that word.
So what was our deciding factor? Why did we decide to get engaged and get married? And
Well, the prelude to our getting engaged, or engaged to be engaged, was breaking up. So you broke up with me on Valentine's Day.
you love telling people you're very persistent on it was Valentine's Day when she broke up with me.
And what you said was you showed me your calendar for the next couple of months, all these business appointments and meetings and obligations and commitments, and said, I don't have time. I don't have time for a man.
I don't think I said I don't have time for a man. I think I said I don't have time for a relationship.
Okay. Yeah, that's a difference. Yeah.
That's a big difference. So yes, I broke up partly because I was just getting scared. I think that's the best word. Scared for the first time, as weird as it sounds. For the first time I felt safe. Not that I was not unsafe, and I need to make that clear in my previous marriage, but just my whole being, my soul. When you grow up in trauma, one of the things that happens to a kid when they wake up in the morning, it's not just jump out of bed. It's lay there for a few minutes, see what the house is saying, and what are the noises in the house. It could have been an incident that happened overnight that was still going on. It could have started first thing in the morning. And that's how you kind of plan your day. When we started dating exclusively, I had noticed that was going away, that I would just wake up and be ready to start my day and not listen to the house. And that was the first time in my life that I realized I hadn't had any of that. And that actually scared me, because what happens if it didn't work? What happens if I put in all this time into this relationship and then you tell me, no, it's just too much for me? Because you didn't come from the childhood that I came from. And no matter how much healing and everything I've done, I know little things come up here or there and have to be dealt with, or, just, I just wasn't sure I was willing to take that chance. And so I was willing to break up with you.
To protect yourself from, right?
To protect myself from possibly being hurt.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
So
It took you
it was
a little bit to comprehend what I was doing.
Yes. Well, it was devastating, but okay, I went right back to a dating app.
Yes,
actually.
you did.
Not JDate, but what was it, Match.com, and went on a date within just about a week. What was it?
I don't even think it was.
It was just a few days.
It was days. I was actually very surprised.
And you were still in touch with me, so you knew I was going on this date.
I did, and we had decided it was best that you go on a date, and if I wanted to go on a date, that would probably be best to make sure that this really was what we wanted. Stay together, break up, and then you went on your date with the nurse.
Yes, this was perfectly nice woman, but not even comparable to Heather. And how did you feel knowing I was on this date?
I was actually, for the first time in my life, a little bit out of control. I actually was having a panic attack. I'd never had one of those ever in my entire life. I call up my girlfriend going, I don't know what's going on. I can't breathe. I'm all freaked out. And she's like, you're having a panic attack. And I'm like, no, I don't have those. I don't know what you're talking about. Standing at my office, running around my office on my phone, looking out the window, like I was expecting you to show up or something. But I was just like, I don't know what's going on. And she's like, oh, I think you really like this guy. And I'm just like, what? No, that can't be it. So
then you invited me to come over for the weekend and to make a list of characteristics, traits that would be essential in.
we had to come up, so it was suggested that we come up with 5 non-negotiables on what we wanted in a relationship or marriage.
Yes.
And after your long date that I still tease you about to this day, after your long date.
It was like 3 or 4 hours.
A long date. At least it wasn't longer than our first date. And we needed to just make this list and decide. I had already known that I was way more in love with you than I expected. And you had truly affected my life in such a positive way that I didn't want to let that go. And so you came over for the weekend. We had our 5, you had your 5, I had my 5, and then we just kind of exchanged them.
Yes.
And what did it wind up
And
being?
ended up, they were pretty much the same lists.
They were almost exactly the same. So we decided.
Okay. So we were back together and engaged to be engaged.
So we decided we're moving forward. We will get engaged within the next couple of months. And then we did get engaged.
Yes, that was.
But we kind of didn't share with family or really share it with a lot of people. And then in June.
Yes, we got engaged. It was April 2023.
Yes. And then we just kind of kept it quiet for a little bit.
Yes.
We didn't post anything. I didn't post anything on social media. I'm more on social media than you. And basically, we went to California and made it like this whole big trip. You had a conference to go to in Palm Springs. We're both
Yes.
from California, so what an opportunity to go to our home state and experience that together. I hadn't been to Palm Springs in 30 years or so. So great opportunity to see your world, the academic
so-
world that I've never been a part of, and fascinated me right off the bat.
Gonna see. You said I want to see you with your nerd friends.
That's it. And it was so much fun, and I enjoyed them so much. And they have, even though I am not in the academic world, they've been very accepting of me and all of my questions, because I'm always asking questions. And
She went to the poster session at the conference
Yes.
and asked the poster presenters questions, and there were undoubtedly questions they'd never heard before.
have you thought about this? What about that? But they were all very gracious, and it really was a lot of fun. But we took that trip because that was a weekend conference, and we took that and spread it over. Decided to do 2 weeks. So we decided to, at the last minute, you decided you wanted to go to Bakersfield, and I'm like, we don't really need to, but okay. So
So we rented a car in Palm Springs, drove to Bakersfield.
drove to Bakersfield. You met my uncle, and we went to a Basque restaurant that I grew up going to downtown, the bad part of downtown. Bakersfield, had a great lunch, sat and talked to him for several hours, and then we walk us
walking out of the restaurant.
and SWAT is all around
Yeah.
us. People are in handcuffs up against the wall.
And they were announcing through megaphones,
We're coming
come
in.
out.
And I just kind of looked at you and was like, welcome to Bakersfield. And then my uncle, I'm still surprised this day. My uncle was just like, not phased at all. He was great to see you, nice meeting you, and just walks off the opposite way. But we stayed one night there, then we drove over to Cambria and San Simeon. Stayed a couple of nights there. That was a place that always has great memories of my childhood. That was a place where we would go and rent a beach house and be able to stay there for a week or two. During vacations, we always had great vacations because my dad never did anything during vacations. It was like he was on his best behavior. So vacations were always amazing. So that brought great memories, and I wanted to share that with you. You'd never been to that part of the state.
Right. And we had a couples massage. That was the first massage I ever had.
I started learning you about the pampering ways of life, getting you to appreciate those. And then we decided we needed to drive down to San Diego to meet your family. And
So you can see that this was a stress test.
this was a big stress test. Not only that, ladies will understand this, that I had to coordinate clothing and packing for 4 different locations because we were in Palm Springs for several days and you had to dress accordingly. We were in Bakersfield one night, which was fine, but I needed to keep all the clothes, like this is Bakersfield's clothes, this is the beach clothes, this is San Diego's clothes, and we did remarkably well. We didn't have too many. We had a few. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah, no, it wasn't perfect, but at that we knew we could travel together.
We could travel very well together.
So
And that was the first time you learned that I drive really fast down the Los Angeles freeways.
yes. She thinks I drive too slow.
And then he thinks I drive too fast. So, but when you're in Los Angeles traffic, you have to go with the flow of traffic. But then we met your family and fell in love with them. And we had a great time. I mean, it was really nice to experience that. Know that we could travel was the number one.
Big thing. That's a big thing because, when you're traveling together, you find out things about people that you don't in pretty much any other way. And because, right, things crop up that, it's fun, but it's also stressful. And so that was an important thing to find out.
And that was just basically the start of our traveling. We've been fortunate to travel in Europe and travel all over the country. But I'm a great packer.
It's amazing. I don't know how she does it.
I have everything worked out. Every day you just get up, and when we travel, every day you just get up and go, what do I wear today?
Exactly.
And
yes.
Here's your clothes for today.
So I have complete faith that there's everything we need. It's going to be there, and it's going to be there when it's needed.
But that was a good trip. We really some good memories with that trip for sure. So we thank you for joining us here today. We hope where we talked about online dating, the safety of online dating, how make sure you travel with somebody before you marry them.
Yes.
Make sure you travel together.
About how dating in middle age, how it's ways it's different from dating when you're younger. We talked about some of the ups and downs of our relationship.
The things we had to learn.
The things we had to learn from each other, and the things we had to learn about how to get along, how to get past,
how to leave the old baggage at the door and not bring that into our relationship. That was really a big thing. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. And so join us here each week, my friend, where you're sure to get a smile. From lessons learned to mishaps, the adventures go on for miles. Here on
The Professor and Heather Ann.
Thank you for listening to The Professor and Heather Ann.